You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Black Spire and Mos Eisley all the way to the jewel of the core at Coruscant in the bright center of the galaxy, slamming into your holo projector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, John, and my co-host is...
Jason.
And we are here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars film, TV, book, comic, gaming, and collecting news. The date is March 8th, 2021, and we have a slew of topics to talk about. We had a slow February, so we're getting back into the swing of things again. And there was some, good
I don't think it
news.
was that slow as far as stuff going on.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
at least the big thing, but
Yeah, well, who wants to talk about some of these things? It's, we're gonna cover some stuff that has been needing to be talked about, and then we'll purge it from our system and then pretend it never existed again.
right.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But first, the High Republic is now started and has been out for more than a few weeks now, and the fans are getting their first taste of that. And from my dabbling here and there of High Republic news, it seems like there's mostly a lot of positive feedback on it. The Light of the Jedi novel, I think, is the first normal adult novel release, and I've been hearing good things about that, but yeah, there's been some, of course, as expected, some mixed, feedback on other things. Yeah, I don't know. What have you heard about the High Republic yourself?
Only the jokes about Leo Gayassi or whatever his name is, that new character they revealed with
Right.
his rock co-pilot.
Yes.
And his vessel called the Vessel.
Yeah.
It didn't go. It did that announcement didn't go over very well. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah.
Unless you're into Scootin' Food.
Well, it would be really ironic and funny if, like, the rock gets chiseled down into something else, and it's like you could create all kinds of jokes with that. Like, oh, what if he chisels it and it's like, it's like a statue of Triclops or something, or like Trioculus.
He's a piece of Mount Yoda.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what it came off to me. I mentioned this to you, but to me, that announcement and just the ship called the Vessel and
Right.
Geo,
The Vessel.
It just like kind of came off like the Glove of Darth Vader Trioculus series of books. Like it was like proto EU, and on top of that, it was, aimed toward kids, like totally. So it was just like goofy off the wall stuff, which is fine. It has its place.
Yeah, at least the High Republic stuff has a mix of things. There's young adult stuff, there's junior content, there is short stories, there is comic books under the Star Wars Adventures label, which was kind of aimed at slightly younger comic book readers. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, it's gonna probably be a while until I get to that on my reading. It's not high priority for me.
Really?
But I think I will get to it once that Disney Plus series gets a little closer in a couple years, because that's going to be tied into the High Republic.
Yeah, I don't know.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't like there being like a tight mix between young adult stuff and the adult stuff.
You think it should just be an adult series or just a kid series, but like not a cross pollination?
I don't want the lighter kid stuff to be consequential. or
Yeah.
to feel like it's very consequential to the official story or the
Right,
official
because
canon or what's going on.
then it makes us 40-year-olds have to traverse the kids section at Barnes and Noble and feel weird if we
Well, I got
bend
an
down and
excuse. I have an excuse. I have a kid, but
that's true.
um, no, it's more like if you do that, you sort of give yourself, the story group would give themselves the freedom to do whatever they want with the kids stuff. They could
Yeah.
have goofy stuff. And, because it's like the whole reason people are goofing on the announcement of Geode and Leo and all that stuff is because it is billed as being it's this multifaceted initiative, and presumably the kids stuff will be consequential to what's going on in the
Yeah.
overall story and the stuff. But if it was just like, oh, this is the kids stuff, you'd be like, oh, whatever, that's cool.
Yeah.
you
That's
know
very true.
it's the same thing with like when Disney said, oh, we're resetting canon. Now everything's canon,
Hmm.
or to an extent. And when you put that forward, you're painting yourself into a corner. You're setting up an expectation,
Yeah.
and fans are merciless, and certainly there's contingents of fans that are going to rip into announcements like this, like they did.
Yep. Yeah. That's so
it's not
true.
it's not right or wrong, but it's like, if you separate it, nobody thinks that when we were reading the old EU, I don't think anybody took certain stuff very seriously. Nobody took the Jedi Apprentice books super
No.
serious. You didn't have to
No.
read them to get,
Even
a
though there was some great plot points and some great characterizations and great lessons to come from them, I think overall no one was looking to those books as where they were going to get their serious Star Wars fiction
right.
um
And
jollies.
yeah, and you could take it or leave it, right? You didn't have to
Yeah.
read them to like know, like to get to understand Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's relationship.
Yes.
You didn't have to read the Young Jedi Knight books to
Yeah.
understand where those characters came from when they entered into the adult books in the new
Yeah.
Jedi Order series. So it's entirely possible that the kids' portion of the High Republic stuff is going to be separate, but it hasn't been presented that way. So I think
Yeah.
that's where the issue comes, and maybe there's a blurb, right? Maybe there's a blurb about it being separate, or because it's entirely possible that people are just shitting on it to shit on it, because there's lots of people that just want to shit on anything that comes out
It
of
could be likely.
Star Wars.
See,
But
that's the problem too, because it's being promoted as the main thing under the Star Wars social media banners right now.
mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, it's catching all the fans for everything.
Yeah,
So then and there's not a lot of Star Wars news right now. So it is the main
mm-hmm.
thing. And so, of course, you're going to have these crusty old dudes that are older than us and more crotchety when it comes to what they consider Star Wars. And it's like, and in a lot of cases, this is people that haven't even seen Clone Wars or Rebels. This is people that have only seen the sequel trilogy and the classic trilogy and the prequels and might not have even treaded in the novels at all, not
Yeah,
even back in the day.
yeah,
So they're seeing these characters with their side shaved haircuts, and their rock co-pilots and their things like this, and they're like, what's this millennial crap, in
yeah,
my Star Wars, and it's like, look, people get so overly serious about this stuff. You have to remember with Star Wars, and I've said it so many times, you have to learn to step away and be like, look, you have to look at it for what it really is on the surface, which is a really cheesy B movie. That's what it is on the surface. If you just step away and pretend you've never seen any of the movies or anything, just look at it. That's what it is. So what I like to do sometimes there'd be these huge contentious comment threads going on social media, and everyone's like arguing this and arguing that, slinging mud, calling each other snowflake or this isn't my Star Wars. And then I like to just drop in with one little comment. I like to say, like, I like lasers,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that just brings it right back to being a kid again, when that's all you care about is lasers and explosions. Because at the end of the day, that's that's all I want from Star Wars. I've seen IG-88 upload his consciousness into the Death Star. I've read this. I've seen Luke take down like 7 Dark Jedi that were instantly promoted by Palpatine with like no training whatsoever in the Dark Empire comics. We've seen the Lost City of the Jedi, which is an underground cavern on Yavin 4, where Ken, the the Jedi apprentice, is trained by robots and goes to school with a pet Muka or whatever.
yeah.
You have to like remember, this is a vast universe of a lot of cheesy shit, whether it's legends or canon. And you have to remember, like, the primary demographic is children and kids for Star Wars. That's the primary demographic. You can enjoy surface or deeper things on it as an adult, but you have to remember, you're no longer, as you get older, you're no longer that primary demographic. It's just That's just not how life works. So,
Yeah. Um, but on the flip side, I think the another part of the problem is that Disney is, in a lot of ways, not giving the fans what they want, and at least not giving the
unaltered
demographic.
trilogy.
Well, yeah. Well, good luck. I mean, I have my copy on DVD. I managed to get that at the
I
time,
should
but
have I should have said that like comic book guy.
right.
I want my unaltered trilogy,
But
please.
and the Disney, has dropped the ball kind of in a lot of ways, giving the fans what they want, which is evident by toy sales and stuff.
Yeah.
Because, there is a demographic that spends a lot of money, and it's not little kids
No,
necessarily.
it's not.
The people with the money are our age group, the ones that are
Yeah.
buying the toys for ourselves and for the kids. So,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
whatever. What are you gonna do? I'm not on the board of Disney. I'm not in
Yeah,
uh, Bob Chapek's office telling him
right.
what to do with Kathleen and Lucasfilm and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So we'll see how it
Yeah.
goes. But um, anyway, yeah, High Republic. Can't wait to read that.
Yay. And speaking of things that Disney should do or has done or couldn't do, or whatever second guessing we can do, um the Gina Carano story. Star Wars, a Gina Carano story. We'll have to talk about that. So basically, you could word it as that she was fired from the Mandalorian, but she wasn't really, not according to Disney. She just wasn't currently scheduled to be on any upcoming
She didn't get a
projects.
new contract. She didn't get a new
Yes,
contract.
yes, but at the end of the day, you know, because she was a core. I would consider her a core element of the Mandalorian, not like story element per se, but as far as like she was promoted with it, she was scheduled to do interviews and promotions, just like everybody involved with the show. So the fans got to
No,
know
she
her
was
over the
she was
last couple of
definitely a
years.
positive female character.
Yeah, and
Strong,
Disney
positive
likes
female
that.
character that you know.
Yeah, and one reason I am reluctant to even talk about this is because I was very open about my love of Gina, and obviously with the situation as it happened, um, I kind of fell out of love with her. But well, why don't you describe the basics for anyone who might be on Mars and not have caught this before? Why don't you describe what happened?
She tweeted an excuse for Disney to cancel her.
Yeah.
That's my
That's
take. I mean,
that's one way to
uh,
put it.
politics aside, there is. She made the fatal mistake of tweeting anything controversial um, while employed with Disney, or at least under
Right.
consideration for a new contract with Disney.
That is the kiss of death. And some people say she, or even I think she said in interviews later, I think she said that she wanted to do this, or that was implied that she was doing this to purposely get out of Disney. I don't know if
I'm
there's
not
any.
sure. I didn't watch the whole interview, that the follow up interview she gave.
I don't even want to see. I skimmed an interview she gave, and it was, you know, yeah, there was various things that were interesting, but like, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I really liked Gina. I have to put that in past tense now because it's just because the it's not even what she said exactly. It's just how she went about it was, I don't know. It reminded me of other situations I've had to deal with former friends on my own social media. So it kind of it once people fit into a certain mold, it's easy to just be like, oh, they're like this. Therefore, I can just eject them from my consciousness and not think about them anymore. And it's just kind of sad, you know?
um, yeah.
It's like
Uh,
very cut and dry,
I, I,
cut and run.
I still like her.
Yeah.
I didn't really personally. I didn't really have any problem with what she said or what she
Hmm.
posted. I suspect that a lot of people that that read the story and the stories about her getting canceled by Disney or whatever. I suspect a lot of the people didn't actually go and look at what she said or posted any of the stuff.
Probably
Um,
not.
not the Holocaust comparison, not the election fraud stuff, any of that
Yeah.
stuff. I suspect most people didn't look at it, because if you look at that stuff, 9 times out of 10, it's like not as bad as what is trumped up in the media, because there's
Ooh,
like
nice
this.
wordplay there.
There you go. So I don't think it was that bad. Now, like everybody says, Disney's a private company. They could do whatever they want. If they want to fire somebody, they can do it. If they don't want to renew their contract,
See,
that's fine.
that is the core problem with the arguments back and forth. The the
I
problem I
I
have
will
is like
say,
censorship, but they're a private company.
right.
It's the
I,
same reason I can't go wearing my Sky Zone shirt for my former job and then going out and saying certain things standing in front of the building. It's the same
right.
thing,
Yeah.
literally.
I
So,
will say, other people have controversial tweets that are not canceled by Disney. There is a very similar comparison to World War II tweeted out by Pedro Pascal. And as far as I know, he's coming back for Mandalorian season 3 and other stuff.
right,
Now, that was back in 2018, so that wasn't during the Mandalorian's run.
right.
So, and James Gunn had the same issue where like old tweets,
Hmm.
got him in hot water with Disney, and then, you
Very
know,
old in his case. I think it was
very old.
early
Yeah, it was back when
2000s
he was
or
working for Troma.
yeah,
The subject matter was very sensitive, though. He's talking about jokes about pedophilia and stuff like that. It was
yeah,
very edgy humor, right? There's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
edgy humor. In those cases, I felt like it's like, dude, there's old tweets for one. Two, who cares?
We need a statute of limitations on tweets.
Well, what at the end of the day, if you get a okay, don't post on social media, right? Don't post your political opinions.
That is number
Either
one.
way, either way, because the thing is, I don't think Pedro should be uh
Comparing
cancel
someone to Senator Palpatine, like he did, you
No,
know.
it was it was a tweet comparing concentration camps to immigrant children in cages or whatever. I
Yeah.
think the picture he used
Yeah.
wasn't even in the United States. It was somewhere else. I don't know all the details. It doesn't matter. That's not
What
the point.
happened?
It's not a tit for tat thing. I don't think Pedro should be canceled for that. I don't think Gina should be canceled for what she said because it's but I don't think that they just don't post it. Like, politics is
Yes.
so poisonous and toxic now on all
Yeah.
sides,
Well,
and it's like it's just don't. If you get a big contract, go do us all a favor. Go back, delete all your old posts. Just
yeah.
just delete them, and then like either hand all your social media accounts over to your publicist, or just limit yourself to posting lighthearted stuff and
Yeah.
or just updates on what you're doing as far as like projects and stuff,
Right.
and just don't, because
Yeah.
it like I said, it doesn't matter what side of
It's
the
also not
political
going to
spectrum
change
it's on.
anything. It's not literally not going to change anything other than maybe a few people that in your sphere. I mean, even if you're massive like Mark Hamill or something, whose mind are you really going to change this late in the game?
Yeah, well,
You know?
there's Mark made a tweet, a nasty tweet about the Trump grandkids, Ivanka
Yeah.
and Jared's kids, and I saw it and I was like, you know what, Mark, maybe there's some history with you and grandkids and your son's girlfriend slash wife or whatever it was. I think girlfriend. Maybe just don't,
Yeah.
because it's like I like Mark Hamill. I know that he
Well,
leans
very,
left and
very
stuff, and that's
liberal. And
fine.
the thing is, though, he feels it's okay, just like a lot of celebrities in Hollywood do, because Hollywood does lean liberal. And
Mm-hmm.
so we feel insulated here in California because most of our surroundings are very liberal. And we're everything also because everything, I think, also in our state, at least in Southern California, well, I think one reason we do lean liberal that people don't often talk about is because we live within very close quarters with various people of different backgrounds and ethnicities. And that's not the case in other areas where
Well,
everything's
but
more
then but
spread
then
out.
you're I don't want to get into the weeds on politics and stuff, but you're implying
No,
that conservatism is limited to
no, no, no,
white people or
no, no.
whatever.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the reason we lean liberal on a lot of things is that because everything is very tightly knit here, as far as cultures being living close together, we have to basically learn to get along in some ways. And so that I think that's just one of the factors that comes into play when it comes. I mean, obviously that's going to influence Hollywood, which is right in the heart of Southern California. So, because there's so many different factors. That's just one. But like, yeah, I obviously Mark feels justified in things. He feels comfortable. No one's going to be poking and prodding him off of his perch in Star Wars fandom.
Right.
And it is what it is. But yeah, you're right. He shouldn't say certain things.
Nobody should. Hey, people in glass houses should not throw stones.
Yeah.
That's just an example, though. I at the end of the day, my point is just don't. Just
Yeah, just
you're just
don't.
gonna piss people off, and who wants to piss anyone off anymore? I went back and
But it
uh,
feels good.
yeah, it does, it does. I love poking the bear sometimes.
Oh, you
Um,
know me. I really like doing it on my social media
right, but I
or
went
in
I went
general.
back and like I deleted tons of stuff, politics stuff, because at the end of the day, it's like um,
I'm embarrassed when I look at my Facebook memories and I see certain things that I was sharing like from 5 years ago even.
That's why
It's
you
just
have to
like,
go back
ugh.
and delete stuff. That's what I did. I
Yeah.
curate my social media now as far as
Well,
like,
I'll, I do to a certain degree, but I also have it as a reminder to not do it now in my memories, Facebook memories. So it's like
well, I
it's kind of like a living testament to
okay, to put it
failure
right.
if I just
Well,
keep it in there.
to put a cap on it, um personally, I feel like Gina shouldn't have been canceled because she's she's great in the show. I love her character. It's there's this whole issue, not issue, but like there's this perceived issue, or there's a lot of people, I shouldn't say perceived issue either. There's a lot of people that feel like Disney is forcing certain things into Star Wars, like, female empowerment, and
Inclusivity, that feels
diversity and all that
overt.
stuff.
It feels overt.
It feels forced.
Yes,
And
I have
I'm not
issues
gonna
with that.
I'm not gonna say whether or not I feel like it's forced or not, or any of that stuff is good or bad or forced or anything. But there's a lot of people that feel that way, and I felt like if that's the case, Gina and her character didn't feel forced. She was just kind of there,
Yeah,
and it was a
yeah,
character that could show up, could not show up, and if the character was popular, it could organically be written into the show and stuff like
yeah.
that.
I think one reason is this is difficult for me, like I said, is that I defended her with so many accusations of things and things that she felt and put out there. And constantly defended her. I defended her supposed bad acting, which it's like, hello, have you seen a Star Wars movie? It's not all Academy Award winning acting. It's just people just doing their thing like a B movie, like I said. And so on that in that regard, because I was literally just defending her days before, and then this whole thing happened, and I then it was like I disagreed with her on half of what she had done. So it was this weird thing where I was like schizophrenically like, oh, how do I feel about Gina now? And it's just a mixed thing because I still really love her, and it's like a lot of things. Sometimes we have friends where we're really close to somebody and we disagree about something, whether it's religious or politics or lifestyle, and then but you just got to deal with it in whatever way, or just
People
don't bring it up. Like if
pe-
you disagree with a friend on politics, just don't bring up politics when you hang out and have a beer.
People have
you
been
know
dealing with this for centuries, right? And certainly in for decades with like politics, conservative,
yes.
liberals, all that stuff, and they've dealt with it. It's only recently where it's become this hypersensitive issue, and people are drawing lines in the sand and making bold statements and destroying friendships over it. I have lost a friend to politics. It wasn't me that broke it off. It was him, but that's his decision. It's unfortunate, but he had that much of an issue with my politics, and he decided to break up as a friend.
Well,
It's weird.
Jason, you supported Order 66, for years and years now, and the destruction of the Jedi. So I don't know, maybe your friend had a point there, but
Maybe Palpatine did nothing wrong.
yeah.
But it's unfortunate, and people just need to relax. And that's the whole thing with, like I said, social media, all that stuff. People just don't, because it's so hyper polarizing and stuff, and
Yeah.
the media loves to amp it up. You know, uh, it's total manipulation. I don't want to get into it. It's a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing. It's a whole
it's
thing.
a whole thing. Yeah,
I don't think what she
it's
said was
the
that bad. I think other people have said other stuff that's at least as bad. However, they didn't say it while the show was going on, so there's an excuse to not cancel them and
so
stuff.
yeah.
And obviously, they're
At the end of the day, let's say Gina could have handled this better, and she should have maybe done things a different way. But at the same time, Disney maybe could have done things a different way and communicating things to certain people. I don't know. It's something this is going to kind of probably reverberate for a little while, at least through this year. And then probably 5 years from now, we'll be looking back and go, hey, remember when Gina Carano was on the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian? Hey, remember those days?
I mean, I made the joke, but I mean, how come it couldn't have been Ray Park making making political tweets, and Gina could have been the one dropping
Oh,
videos
why?
accidentally on?
Oh man, now you got me thinking like that
Yeah,
would have been way better.
yeah.
Darn it. Well, I guess Ray took one for the team, and he's still going for
He's-
us.
yeah, I don't know. Is his role as Darth Maul more important than
Yeah,
Gina on the
yeah.
shows? I
I
don't know. We'll
Little
see.
did we know that Crimson Dawn was led by Peter North all these years. So I guess we'll see what happens with any future Darth Maul stories. But yeah, anyway, we'll see. We'll keep following news on that if anything comes to light. But it's probably going to be one of these situations where it's kind of cut and dry, and that's probably going to be it because everyone, Disney especially, is probably going to want to move on. And it's just
It
like
just it
I
sucks
don't
because
think.
the back room gossip and drama that's is or isn't going on behind the scenes at Disney and Lucasfilm is in a lot of ways a lot more exciting than the the stuff that they're announcing and putting out. I mean, obviously the Mandalorian's really good, but um, you know,
Yeah,
it's
nothing is
kind of
really firing fans up as far as
yeah,
recent.
they don't
Mm,
have that Marvel TikTok release going
yeah,
yet.
yeah,
Um, where they've got something coming out constantly as far
right,
as like as shows or movies and stuff like that. But
right.
anyway, whatever. It is what it is.
It is what it is. And luckily, I think we still have, we got Star Wars things around the corner, but just not really 2021 so much. Um, it's going to be a quiet year, probably focusing on High Republic. And then we got the Book of Boba Fett, but that's still, at this point,
About
9, 10 months away.
yeah, nearly a
So
year away.
nearly a year away. And probably in the fall, if not late summer, probably August. That's when we're going to see things start to heat up with more news on that and other. Usually around the time they would have the D23 kind of stuff. Usually August, sometimes even July. Um, so yeah, we'll hear more as the year goes on. Um, and now, one of the main topics I wanted to talk about on this episode, we're going to do a little retrospective, little game room retrospective on two video games, both under the same series, and that is the Dark Forces series. We're going to start with the original Dark Forces and then also talk about Jedi Knight. And we're going to have future episodes where we cover the later entries in the series as we play through them again. But these first two games were, I think, regarded as LucasArts classics. Dark Forces was released in February 1995. It was, I think some people could call it a Doom clone because that was the only term that fit at the time. I don't think people were really even saying first person shooter back then. It was just kind of like everything that wasn't Doom was a Doom clone.
Yes,
Um,
that was the term.
that was the term. It was, I remember even when I saw it in the LucasArts. What was that little digest? It was the one that would come in the game boxes. It was
Was it a
the
digest or a catalog?
catalog. Oh, the company store. It was the company store catalog was within it, but I think it was itself called something else, like LucasArts. I don't know. I have to look that up.
You know, if I
But
went into the garage and dug into the boxes, because I still have some of the game boxes,
yeah,
I probably
I,
could find a copy of one, but
I have mine in a pile here somewhere nearby, but it's buried.
at hand.
Because I was going over it. I think I posted pictures of it on my Facebook recently. But anyway, when I first saw the article in there, it was the one that had been released with TIE Fighters. It was like that summer, and there was one single picture of the game, and it said it was a first person perspective, blah blah blah. You're a rebel agent, infiltrating imperial bases. There wasn't a lot of story mentioned in the article because it was still at that point about 6 months from release. But just from the picture, I remember describing it to my friend Daniel, and I was like, whoa, this sounds like Star Wars but Doom. And because Doom was the hot property in 1994, that was the only comparison I had. And it was very, very. enticing to have the idea of running around in a 3D environment in the Star Wars universe. That was, I mean, actually, that's the first time we had that because Rebel Assault was a rail shooter. Doesn't
Very
count.
on rails. Even
Very
even
on
the
rails.
parts where you're out of your ship.
Yes. Yes. So
I mean, it was amazing
this
at the time,
was,
but it was, man,
yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
chore now.
Yeah. Dark Forces was the first. I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective before. But, and I like the fact that Dark Forces used an original story. It wasn't just following the movies. Um,
Original story,
obviously,
original character,
yeah.
but
And
but added
it
in, but
was,
added in, existing characters
yes.
to
So,
give it more weight.
and that was the right thing to do because people were still in the mid 90s. We still, we were still like, we wanted to see familiar faces. We wanted to see Darth Vader or Boba Fett or whatever. But the original plan, as I recall, according to interviews with Justin Chen, who developed the story and a lot of the game engine, it was originally going to be you were going to play as Luke. That was the original plan, and they were going to have lightsabers. But with the game engine at the time, you couldn't really do lightsabers in that engine because it would have had to have been like a static animated image, kind of like the blaster in front of you. It wouldn't have worked. It would have like it wasn't until they did 3D with Jedi Knight that it kind of, improved and they were able to do it. But because of the limitations, um, they were like, let's create our own character. Let's have this guy named Kyle Katarn. He's a rebel agent, and so it became more focused on the guns and the grenades and using other weapons, which kind of gave it that Doom flavor. And I think originally there was going to be a villainess in the game named Ru San, according to early articles. And
Rusan.
this is, yeah. So when they later came up with that planet for Jedi Knight, they just combined those names and said, "Oh, call it Rusan." But there was going to be a female Imperial agent that foils Kyle's plans in the first game, and then she was cut.
That would have been neat. I mean, the just the whole it's speaking of the lightsaber and the lack of and all that stuff. Sometimes it's feels like one of those instances where the limitation ends up making the story or the game or the
Yeah.
movie or whatever more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's there's tons of media like that, and this
Yeah.
is one of them where obviously it's the go-to is like a Jedi and lightsabers and the Force,
Right.
but to just be a dude with a gun in the
And
Star Wars
I've
universe is
said it.
refreshing.
I've said it many times on our on. Here's a little plug for our playthrough. Look up Let's Play Dark Forces, which will be coming out momentarily in the coming weeks here. But we have a backlog of recordings. I've said it more than a few times. I like playing the grunts in Star Wars, normal guys and girls with just blaster weapons and thermal detonators and stuff. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm tired of seeing Jedi or I don't I don't have the same power fantasy of being a Jedi and playing as one in various games, but I don't know. I like the idea of a lived in Star Wars universe with normal people, normal X-Wing pilots and TIE fighter pilots and commandos and things like that. So it's just kind of cool and um yeah, I mean, so this was the first time we got a taste of that kind of thing, and a lot of the same people who worked on TIE Fighter worked on Dark Forces. The iMuse system of MIDI
Hmm.
was used again, and I believe it was the same composer, Clint. I don't know how to say his last name, if it's Bahakian or Bajakian. He did the music, of
Is he
course.
a Bajakian monkey lizard?
Yeah, and he, of course, utilized John Williams' Star Wars themes, interwoven with his own original themes for Admiral Mock and Katarn and other characters. Um, but and then of course he had a lot of the voice cast. Denny Delk, who played Admiral Zarin in TIE Fighter, he did the Imperial officers throughout the game, and so that was a familiar voice. And I don't know, just playing that first Dark Forces game, it's very much that early LucasArts vibe. I get the same vibe as when I'm playing TIE Fighter or X-Wing. It's before things were farmed out to other developers, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was in-house.
Yeah, and you mentioned that in our playthroughs, I lamented the fact that unlike Doom, we never got the source code released for the engine, so it's been kind of a chore nowadays to like get it running, and like, there's not all these, source ports that add 3D graphics and the ability to upgrade the sprites and the
Yeah,
textures and all that stuff. And like I said, just trying to get it to run is a little bit of a chore. It's not
yeah.
super difficult, but
GOG helped. Having goodoldgames.com definitely helped people get it up and running again.
yeah. But it was LucasArts was the developer of the
Mm-hmm.
engine. Presumably they could have released the source code a la id releasing the source code for Doom and
Right.
stuff. They could have released the source code for the Jedi engine. Unfortunately, they didn't, which sucks. And I don't think that Disney will ever do that. I don't think that it's even on their radar to do something like that.
Probably not. They're too busy raking Alan Dean Foster for his royalties
Oh yeah.
right
Oh,
now.
why? Maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Pleasant side of the Disney
Yeah.
acquisition.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a side story we will get to probably more in depth later on. And a little plug again, it was talked about for at least a few minutes in one of our Jedi Knight playthroughs, which is uploaded. So you have to seek that out on your own,
Good luck,
to listeners.
So it's kind of a bummer. I know that there has been in the past, and I think currently there is at least one project, one person working on
Yeah.
trying to reverse engineer the engine for Dark Forces and or Jedi Knight, the Sith engine too, and get those uh, up and running to be more easily played on modern systems and upgrade the graphics and all that
Right.
stuff. Hopefully it comes to fruition, but those projects are always tough because
It's one guy
a
working in
lot
his
of time a lot of times
basement.
it's one guy passion project, and then eventually you gotta pay the bills, so you can't spend all your time working on these side projects and
Yep.
stuff. But hopefully it happens because it would be nice to be able to easily upgrade the graphics and stuff if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Because the PlayStation version, I think, had a higher resolution than the PC version.
Did it?
I think the PlayStation version had a 480, 640 by 480
Okay.
resolution, whereas the PC was like 320 or something like that. I don't remember
Yeah.
the exact thing, but
Yeah.
so we got shafted on PC.
Yeah, and PlayStation versions tended to not be as good on other games like
Well, I don't think that the performance was better.
yeah,
I think I never played it myself, but I think from what I read, the PlayStation version, although it has a higher
yeah,
resolution,
the
is
specs
not
were
is
different.
not necessarily better. Or
Yeah,
maybe it was the Mac version. Now that I think about it, maybe it was the Mac version had a
that
higher
could be.
resolution
That could
than the
actually
PlayStation
that
version.
sounds actually likely. And there's an interesting side story relating to that. X-Wing, when that came out on Mac, actually it might have even been X-Wing Collector's CD in 1994. When that came out on Mac, they had to redesign the concourse in the game for the menus where you go to the combat chamber or training or battles. And I think that Mac version of the concourse is what ended up being the version on the 1998 enhanced quote unquote version that was part of the trilogy release that was XVT,
Mm-hmm.
TIE Fighter, and X Wing. So that Mac version was used for later projects for everybody, including PC. Those
Yeah.
graphical upgrades. That's what I heard. I heard that recently. I never played X Wing on Mac, so I can't say. But anyway, now when did you first encounter Dark Forces? Because I know I mentioned this in our playthroughs, but like I had a sampler from the LucasArts Archives Volume 2 in 96.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't play the full game until 2001, but it was on my radar and I played it a little bit in the 90s, what I was able to. Um, yeah. When did you encounter the game?
It was a little bit later. Off the top of my head, I don't actually remember if I got a box version or if it came in an archive. I don't think it came in an archive. Um, oh, actually, now that I mention it and I'm looking it up, it almost certainly came in an archive because I have everything else in this archive. So mine I got much later in 98 in the LucasArts Archive Volume 4.
Okay, that
Um,
matches what other things you said because you said you had Yoda stories, and I
yes,
think that came
because it
with
has Yoda stories, it has the TIE Fighter and X-Wing collector CD-ROMs. That's
right,
where I got the X-Wing collector CD-ROM because I didn't have that
right,
prior.
right.
And my Making the Magic or Making
Yes,
Magic.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I got my Making Magic in my LucasArts Archives Volume 2, which had the Dark Forces sampler. It had Rebel Assault, which I already had. It had Rebel Assault 2, which I didn't have. And I'm trying to think if there was one more. That might have been it. And oh, it
yeah,
had TIE
Rebel
Fighter,
Assault 2,
TIE Fighter
yeah,
Collector's CD.
TIE Fighter, and Dark Forces
And then
demo.
just to cover entirely the LucasArts archives, I had Volume One, which was mostly non-Star Wars games.
Mm-hmm.
For my sister, for her birthday, I don't know if it was my mom or my dad, they bought her Archive Volume One for her because she had the main computer that everyone shared at the time, and that came with Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. It came with Day of the Tentacle. It came with what was it? It might
Sam
have
and
come
Max.
Sam and Max Hit the Road,
Yes.
and I think it came. Oh, it came with
Rebel
the
Assault.
Rebel Assault. Okay, that's where my second copy came from, I
Yeah.
think. And then there was a demo.
Yeah, there was
I
a
don't know if
LucasArts Super Sampler.
there was a sampler. It had a couple things, and
It had
if I
Full Throttle, X-Wing, Rebel
yes,
Assault 2, Hit the Hidden Empire, The Dig, and Mortimer and the Riddles of the Medallion.
right. And I think it's weird. I have no memory of some of those. In some cases, it was just game trailers you just
Mm-hmm.
watch. I have no memory of some of those, and I think possibly they didn't work on for some reason on the computer. But I distinctly recall seeing the Rebel Assault 2 promo, and the reason is that promo footage, which is like a little teaser trailer, is not in the Rebel Assault 2 game, and it is actually story based, where you
Mm-hmm.
see these B Wings flying and then they're blown up by a hidden, starfighter of some kind. And
Right.
that was weird that that wasn't in the game itself, and it was just in these like teasers. So if you look on YouTube, just look up Rebel Assault 2 promo, and you can find that, and it's pretty interesting. Anyway,
And there's copies on eBay. $100, you can get
oh, is that all?
your own copy of the LucasArts Archive. This is Volume 1. I'm
Volume 1.
assuming the other ones would be similar priced.
Right. And you know what? I gotta say, the packaging was kind of whatever. It was just like a big plastic box, and then you had like a plastic tray that the game, it would always be better to have the original box versions.
Yeah,
And
it was actually kind of a bummer because it wasn't something that you would hold on to.
and yeah, we had ours for a good year or two. Or actually, I still have my Volume 2 box. I have that, but the
Yeah,
Volume 1 box I think got lost to time, sadly.
yeah. Well,
But I know
$100.
yeah.
Get your box.
um, but I did get okay. So fall '96, I played the sampler level of Dark Forces. It wouldn't run on the home computer, but I took it to Daniel's house, played it quite a bit there over the course of a few days or a week or whatever. And we had a lot of fun. And that was, in the first level, obviously you're stealing the Death Star plans. And I think that was an interesting, as we were to see through various games and comics and whatever, that was the trope that was continued so much through so many Star Wars stories. But I
The
think
stealing the Death Star plans.
the stealing the SR plans, and I
Right, yeah.
think, you know, obviously when they were creating Rogue One, when John Knoll was sketching ideas for Star Wars movies, it's funny that opening crawl to A New Hope, because it hints at further adventures of somebody else
Mm-hmm.
leading into something important in the first movie. That's enticing to people. It's something, it's a multi-layered thing where it entices them because it implies that there was a story beforehand, because remember, Star Wars is set up like a movie serial. It's episode
Well,
4.
that's a movie trope in general, as far as
Yes.
like coming back from the serials and stuff,
Right.
where the beginning of the movie you're finishing up a prior adventure.
Right.
Star Wars does
Indiana
it. The
Jones.
Indiana Jones, James Bond, which Indiana Jones was kind of
Yes.
based on.
There's a term for
Um,
that. It's called, I think it's French, but I think it's in media res or in media res. However, I'm not sure how to say it, but that's what it means, and it literally means like in the middle. That's
mhm.
that's what the term means. And I learned that obviously reading about Star Wars. But when I learned about that storytelling function, actually I read about it in one of the Star Wars role-playing books. They said it's always fun if you start an adventure with one thing ending right in the middle of some action, because
Mhm.
it gets the players, or the audience in this case, engaged immediately without knowing what's going on. And it's funny because whenever there's a new movie these days, whether it's Star Wars or any other franchise, there's so many people, they're like, why are we just being dropped into the action? I don't know what's going on. I didn't read about this. I'm so confused, and they didn't prepare us for this. That's the point.
You're right.
That's the entire point of in media res. You're dropped into the middle of it without knowing, because that's the fun. You're confused, and it's like, whoa, there's a star destroyer shooting at this like small ship, and there's like these dudes in white armor blasting their way in. Who are these guys? Oh my god. That's the fun. So anyway, to go back to what I was saying about Rogue One, it's obvious that whenever,
How many degrees are we removed from Dark
yes,
Forces?
well,
Going
it
back to what
ties
I was
back
saying
in.
about Rogue One. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
No, it's yeah.
what I was saying though is there's this constant need, whether it was the current new canon or in Legends, where you have these things in the movies, and someone who doesn't know the full EU story
Mm-hmm.
goes, "Hey, I want to learn more about that." And so that's why we have so many Death Star plan stealings. We have so many.
How could the rebels not get the plans? That's what I want to know. Because between all, I mean, at least in the old EU, you got Kyle Katarn, you got Hammer Tong.
Yeah.
Literally, there was a piece of the
Well,
super
that was Death
laser
Star
on.
2, but they don't make
Oh,
that
was
clear.
it? Oh, they don't. Yeah.
It says DS2 on the Hammer Tong,
Oh, yeah. Wow.
but which
I
is
just
kind of
read that
interesting.
story not too long
Right.
ago.
Right.
That makes
Um
more sense. Actually, when I'm reading it, I'm like, I'm like, what? How do they have a laser for the Death Star? Death Star's done, right?
Right,
Like,
right. It
interesting.
is.
I mean,
It is.
I did not. I don't know why I didn't pick up on that.
It's implied that it was Death Star 2
Right,
because
right,
it
right.
says DS2.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. There's these different Star Wars stories, and it took things like the Essential Chronology, which came out later, to properly tie them together. Where there was kind
How
of
come we didn't get Bothans
we
in
did in
Rogue One?
Shadows of the Empire.
No, that's a joke.
Oh,
Remember,
right,
because like people would get
right.
confused, be like,
People,
who's the Bothans? It's like
casuals. Yes,
I didn't see
yeah.
any Bothans died.
There was so many articles written on supposed media sites saying that. It's like, shut up.
Dude,
Um,
that is another problem with social media. I mean, I we were talking about before recording this about the blurb I saw about uh, Mara Jade having
yeah,
Karen Gillan or whatever
right,
eyed reportedly eyed for live action Mara Jade.
right.
You know, where'd that come from? Nowhere. Just pull it out of ass. It's clickbait. Same thing with the Bothan thing. The person probably knew what they were talking about, but they're like, you know what? I'll write "We're the Bothans" and I'll get tons of clicks because you'll get
Well,
rabid Star Wars fans like going, "What the?"
angrily going, no, that's not what it is, while pushing our glasses on our face.
Uh huh.
That's exactly the intent, I think. But anyway, yeah, there was, thanks to the Essential Chronology, it took a source like that, a Star Wars history book, to properly tie together the disparate threads of the Death Star plans, which continued forward in things past the Essential Chronology. There was a level in Star Wars Battlefront where there's a break-in on the Death Star detention level by Rebel commandos, and they have a set of plans, and then they escape, and there was just,
I
dude,
don't care. I don't care. It
yeah,
Kyle Katarn
yeah, it was just
got
Kyle.
the plans. That's
It
right.
was
I
Cassian
did it.
Katarn.
I did it. I
Yeah,
played that level. I got the
yep.
plans.
And actually, going back to what I was saying, that's actually a great thing to give the player that satisfaction that they were the ones who did this. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was a good thing, especially for younger kids that might have played Dark Forces and who were just starting to learn about the backstory of the movies. That would give them a great feeling of pride, like, hey, I'm the one that did that. And so that was cool to make that the first level, because then you're just pulled into the story then at that point, because everything afterwards takes place after A New Hope, about 6 months later.
Yeah.
So that gave them a little more free reign to come up with their own side story. Obviously, there's Darth Vader shows up as a recurring thread,
You know,
along
if
with
they, because we
uh,
got, speaking of people that showed up, you know, we had Vader showed up, and then Mon Mothma, and
yes,
Crix Maydeen or
right.
Shits Maydeen.
Shits Maydeen, another plug for our Let's Play videos.
Yeah. If they ever remake it, somebody should, or you know, if somebody remasters it or whatever, they should insert Jimmy Smits as Bail
Bail
Organa
Organa
into it. And be standing. He doesn't have to say anything. Just have him standing in the
just comes
background with
out of the
Mon Mothma,
shadows, like in
just
Rogue
like
One.
Rogue One. Oh, Jimmy Smits. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so excited.
yeah. I think, gosh, Jimmy Smits must have had 3 or 4 lines in Rogue One. It was like very sparse. But it was cool to see his character, and I mean that was one we knew going in, like, oh, we're gonna see Bail Organa. It'll be a thing. Um, but anyway,
They should have made some dark jokes. Like I'm gonna go back to Alderaan. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you soon.
catch you on the flip side. Yeah, yeah, totally. But oh, one other thing I wanted to mention about Dark Forces that was interesting about the game, um, I don't, what would you call it? The game architecture. And I mentioned this on our playthrough. They hired AutoCAD students from the nearby university when they were creating it, and they were the ones who basically created the floor plans for these levels. So because they were doing 3D environments that were not, that was the difference from Doom. Doom was tied to, it could only do flat surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to kind of fake stairs and things like that, where they had to be solid stairs that went, straight
Yeah, and
up,
you
or
couldn't have floors go over another floor.
yes.
Yeah.
But Dark Forces could do that, so it opened up things a little bit, and they could do. There was an actual architectural um know-how to how the levels are laid out. So when you see Tac Base or the city of Talay, it feels like a real city. It feels like a real environment. The corridors of the Executor or the Arkhammer or these other factories, there's a logic to it that makes a lot of sense. Um, and of course, who could forget the iconic, creepy sound of the Dark Troopers in the game,
Mm-hmm.
which we were later able to see recanonized in The Mandalorian, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Um,
That was I don't know, that's like right under seeing Luke show up, I
yeah,
think, for
yeah,
me. Just
I
having
know.
dark troopers show up.
I know. The only way it could get better for us 90s Star Wars teenagers, the VHS generation, the only way it could get better is if we saw like a live action Admiral Zarin or something, or
Moff
or,
Rebus.
or Moff Rebus. I humbly volunteer my services to put on my wife beater and grab some shades, and I'll be Moff Rebus.
You basically are Moff Rebus
Yeah,
right now.
I just gotta show up. Um, wear some plaid, shorts slash underwear, and some knee high socks and some sandals. Yeah,
You gotta get a like an Imperial pants,
yeah,
Like
yeah.
just do half the cosplay. Imperial pants with a wife beater and some
But the pants are
glasses.
kind of like I can't button them, so it's just like they're zipped up as high as they'll go, and
Yeah.
yeah, I got my belly hanging out and everything. It'll be great. Um, Yeah, Moff Rebus. Let's talk about him for a second. He's an interesting character. He's the what you're looking for at the end of level 3 in the Anoat City garbage level. And it's weird. Jan says in the briefing, you got to find Moff Rebus. He's the creator of the Dark Trooper. I think the weapon, the gun it has. And you just see him at the end of the level, and he's just this dude in a chair looking like we described, and it's like, and then nothing is said about it. It's just, I mean, when was
Well, everything about him is like weird,
it is, and
right? It's
it
like,
makes me wonder if he's an Easter egg, like if it's like a LucasArts employee or something that they're like, oh yeah, hey Jeff, we're gonna stick you in the game, man. You're gonna be Moff Rebus.
well,
That's the
he's
vibe I get.
it's just like very un Moth like, right?
Yes,
His
yes,
whole thing, like
right,
he's in the sewers. He's not wearing a uniform.
right,
He's wearing a wife beater and glasses. It's
yes.
just very odd because the only um up until that point, I think mostly it was just, let's see, had we had a TIE fighter before then? But we didn't even have a Moff in TIE fighter.
But there
Like it
was
was
Imperial
basically,
admirals and Grand
yeah,
admirals and things
but
like that.
so it was like Tarkin and Jerjerrod, right? And that was
Yes,
like it. And really,
yeah,
that Jerjerod's like just it because he was just a Moff. He wasn't a Grand
right,
Moff.
right. And
So
there was other Moffs in the backgrounds of the movies, but we didn't know that they were Moffs until like the
right, that was,
CCG cards and things
but
like that.
none of them were sitting on a
Chair in the sewer.
a haircut chair
It
in a
is a haircut
sewer.
chair. It's a spinning chair in
Yeah,
like a laboratory in the sewer, surrounded by Dianogas and sludge.
feces,
Yeah,
Tinoga and
Dianoga
feces,
feces.
poodoo.
Yeah, it's so out of left field, and I want to know the backstory on that so badly, just to satisfy my own curiosity about it.
One day we'll score an interview with somebody
Yeah,
that knows something about the development of Moff Rebus.
yes. Well, I mean, also, for anyone who didn't know, he is the icon on our channel. For for because I changed it. It was an image of Boba Fett from the holiday special, and I changed
Yeah.
it to Moff Rebus, and I just put it in a synthwave filter. But that's him. So and I'm gonna keep it as that for the foreseeable future. That's gonna be representing Star Wars Unfiltered.
Well, what
So
would be really great is to, because a lot of times the sprites, and this is what kind of sucks, is because with Doom, there's all this attention given to it, to a lesser extent, Duke Nukem.
yeah,
But I wish there was like a deep dive on the development of the Dark Forces series. So
I know.
including Jedi Knight and
Like the coding and things like that.
that, and then even like material, like behind the scenes material, like the artwork that they used to make the sprites, right? Because there's a
Yeah.
higher res picture
Yes.
of Moff Rebus
Yes.
somewhere, because the
Yeah.
sprite, had to come from somewhere. The design
Right.
had to come from somewhere. So there's like an actual, like, high
There.
quality picture of them.
Right. In the strategy guide, there is conceptual art, not of Rebus to my recollection, but there is conceptual art of the Dark Troopers and Kyle
Yeah, but I don't
Katarn.
care about all that. I want Moff Rebus. That's what I want.
Right, right. But just to clarify, there is some interesting stuff in the strategy guide. There was no lore, there was nothing that was exclusive story wise, like the TIE Fighter and X-Wing strategy guides, but the Prima guide did have some nice glossy middle pages, and then of course black and white for the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I did read the entire strategy guide a year or two ago as I did one of my playthroughs. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm gonna read this front to back, and I just wanted to learn where all the secrets were that I didn't know about. But yeah, so that's interesting. And
Well, and a good point about like how it was worthwhile to collect those strategy guides, some of them, because they
yes,
would have stuff like that you wouldn't get anywhere else. Even online now, I mean, some stuff's
I
just kind
know.
of quasi lost.
Yeah, and what's cool is when you get the games on GOG.com, uh, and they send you the download installation file, you get PDFs of the strategy guides included.
Oh,
So
you do? Okay.
you
So
do
some of that,
actually.
so it's not lost.
It's not lost, but in other words, they didn't redo a new strategy guide. It
Interesting. I
is the
wonder.
original.
So is it like the Prima? Like,
Yes,
P-
it is.
interesting. I
It
wonder if
is
they have a
because,
deal with Prima or whoever owns that publishing rights now.
well, I'll tell
Hmm.
you what, in the 90s, those were considered under the umbrella of the other lore at the time of
Mm-hmm.
just Legends continuity, basically. So there was, especially in the X-Wing and TIE Fighter guides, even though they because those were written, I think, both by Russell De Maria,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a prima author as far as I know from his credentials in the book. But he had this fiction of first Kian Farlander from X-Wing, and then of course Marek Stell, your avatar in TIE Fighter. So they were almost like novels. And then yeah, there was actually, when you got the game, the early copies, X-Wing came with the Farlander papers, which later was sort of changed and then reprinted as the X-Wing strategy guide. And then TIE Fighter came with the Stell Chronicles, which was completely original and led into the TIE Fighter strategy guide. And actually, I think I actually read the Stell Chronicles before I read the Star Wars trilogy. So I think that technically is my first Star Wars like fiction read.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, going back to the strategy guides, those Prima guides were really great. I miss them. They were cool, but by the late 90s and the development of the internet, just like those LucasArts CD-ROMs, it was everything was going to the internet as far as like
Mm.
strategy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're a lost thing that's just no longer, you know. But yeah, any other memories of certain levels or playthroughs?
I don't remember. I don't recall having too much of a problem with my original playthrough. Although I don't remember beating the game when I first got it back in
Yeah,
'98. But I do have a copy of my save game, and I loaded it up when I did my playthrough last year,
right.
and I was on the last level, so I could see in my save game I was on the last level, but I never completed it, at least to my recollection. Now,
Yeah.
in my playthrough last year, distinctly remember having a huge issue on the detention level where
Yes.
you have to rescue Shit's Maydeen.
Yes.
Um,
That is easily the most irritating level. I think a lot of people might say Anoat, the sewers, but I never had. I mean, I do get frustrated there if it's on medium or hard, but on easy, I never had too much trouble on Anoat.
I played on hard, so I had kind of a problem on the detention level just because, to me, on my playthrough, I wasn't getting the whole like, oh, I need to go through the whole,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get on top
Above
of the
turbo
elevator.
lift.
Yeah, turbo lift. Um, had similar issues on some of the other like puzzles where the level itself was the puzzle.
Yeah.
But probably the worst was Jabba's ship and the Kell Dragons on hard because I think
Right.
there was like 6 or 7 Kell Dragons when you're on hard. When you're on easy or normal, I think it's like 1 or 2. And they amp it up to like I think in the first room there's like 2, then there's another one in the second room, and then there's like
Right.
3 or more in the bigger
Yes.
room, and then you've got the grands and all this stuff. And oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it was just horrible trying to punch several Kell Dragons to death
I would imagine.
while not getting lunched by them.
Yeah.
Um, that's it. That's what sprung from that game is my hatred for Kell Dragons, basically.
Yeah. Who we later saw in Jedi Knight on I think one level. And
Yeah, somewhere in the Baron Heads base, I
yeah,
think, which
they
you get
weren't.
to skip. You that one you fight. Oh no,
Yes.
you see him later in the temple too.
That's
On
right. That's right. You're in the underground thing in the temple.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, that's kind of a good transition. We'll start talking about Jedi Knight. I don't think I have anything else to say about Dark Forces. It is a just to wrap up conversation on that. I think it's a first person shooting classic for definitely for Star Wars, and I think it is for games in general because it was one of the best sellers of 1995. I think it was in
and
the top 20 of the
and I would
year.
say even difficulty getting it running aside because even if you have the CD copy like I do,
Mhm.
um, you just use DOSBox and it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to set up. But if you don't have it, it's totally worth it to just get it on GOG and
Yeah,
play. It's worth
it's
the playthrough for the cutscenes are really good. The animation on the cutscenes are really good.
and the
And
iMuse MIDI soundtrack is
yes,
excellent. It's that
yes,
you want to play if you want to play a classic mid 90s Star Wars game and you know, fire it up, man. It's definitely worth a revisit. It's historical. It's the first 3D environment Star Wars game where you get to run around shooting stormtroopers ever. So, yeah, pick it up. Um And yeah, let's talk about Jedi Knight. I believe came out September 30th, 1997. And this one was an instant splash because we were now getting 3D in our Star Wars first person games. Quake had come out the year earlier. 3D was opening up for the first person genre, and I remember playing this one at your old house just before we left for celebration,
hmm
and it's kind of burned into my memory when I think of the Narshada levels at the beginning. Um, but yeah, what was your experience playing Jedi Knight when you first got it?
I distinctly remember. At the time, I had to run. This is like not with the game exactly, but I remember I had a S3 Verge integrated graphics chip in my old Hewlett Packard Pavilion PC, and I remember it was the game that I had to run some like third party software that would um, I think enhance the driver for that graphics card to be able to play Jedi Knight in 3D. Like the drivers that S3 provided or HP provided for that I think it was like a 2 meg video card or
Mhm.
GPU. It just didn't work. Like I would play it in software and it'd be fine. If I bumped it up to hardware, there would be like weird artifacts or it'd crash or something like that. And for the life of me, I wish I could remember what that software was called. Not that there would probably be any information on it at this point, but I remember having to jump through hoops to get it to
Right.
run in 3D. But man, going from 2D to 3D acceleration on that game was like night and day. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also like I think just everything about it was super crisp. I remember the sounds in the menu being
Hmm.
super crispy, super clear
Yeah.
compared to a lot of other games at the time. Um, that was like a thing. I don't know why that sticks out in my mind, but
No, it does. That little beep as you go from menu to menu and set up your key binds and everything.
yeah.
And of course, it was we got some live action cutscenes, which was continued from Rebel Assault 2, which was the first. Well, the original Rebel Assault had a little bit of live action. It wasn't. It was mostly like live. It was more about cinematic captures. It was like taking
Hmm.
static images or movie clips and kind of twisting those around. But there was a teeny bit of live action. Rebel Assault 2 amped that up. That was actually a big thing for that game. But Jedi Knight continued it, and we had our first Jedi live action kind of footage since Return of the Jedi. And yeah, these
It gave
seven.
the story a lot of weight.
Yeah, it did. And I remember picking up an issue of GamePro magazine from probably fall '96. Might have been that summer, actually. And it was previewing all the Star Wars games that were coming in late '96 or '97. And I think, man, there was Jedi Knight screen captures way ahead of the game coming out. I think
Hmm.
over a year in advance. So I remember seeing pictures of Jarek and Saris and some of these Dark Jedi, the seven Dark Jedi under Jarek, which, if I remember from interviews, again with Justin Chen, who developed this and wrote the story just as he did on Dark Forces, he went back to the samurai influence of Star Wars, and it was supposed to be like the seven samurai. That was the Dark
Hmm.
Jedi. That's why there's seven of them, and each one had their own distinct personality, and in some cases, species. You know, you had Ma, who's like this alien on a repulsor kind of floating unit with no legs, and then you had the female Saris. You had Yun, who's young and kind of naive. You had Gork and Pick, one little alien and one big brutish one, who were brothers of the Sith, which is an interesting term that they later tied into in some of the background lore. Um, but yeah, it was a really cool story actually, and Kyle Katarn was now learning how to use the Force. He finds his father's lightsaber in his workshop, and through a hologram, we find out more about his background. And there was even tie-in graphic novels by William C. Dietz
Hmm.
with different artists for each one of the trilogy. But the first one was Soldier of the Empire, which came out in February 1997. And that dealt with everything prior to Dark Forces. So it was pre A New Hope. And Kyle's background as a stormtrooper, all the backstory leading up to the original Dark Forces. Rebel Agent and Jedi Knight were the other two in the graphic novel trilogy. They came out after Jedi Knight. I think the next summer and fall of '98 is when those ones came out. And do you remember seeing those at like Barnes and Noble back in the day?
Um, I think so because even now I can picture the look of them and stuff. It's just at the
Yeah,
time it was stuff that like would have been really cool to get, but it was like kind of kind of just expensive for what it was
it
at the
was
time.
pricey because those were, I believe, they retailed for over 20. It might have been 24.95, something like that. Because
I don't know what graphic novels retail for now, but yeah, that sounds about right. And that was pretty
that was, at the
expensive.
time, that was pricey,
That
and
was
because
$90.
that was $90. So, I do remember getting excited when I saw them, especially the first one, because I was like, it came out of nowhere. I didn't see anything in the Insider or Galaxy magazine about that ahead of time. So it was just like I was at the store and boom, and they were putting it with the other Star Wars novels in that section. So I remember flipping through and seeing the artwork and kind of skimming the story, but I
Were they
didn't.
hardback?
Yeah, they were hardback,
Yeah.
although they later got released in soft cover,
Hmm.
and I think were at that point they were then put with the other trade paperback comic collections from Dark Horse. Um, and actually, I think these were released under Dark Horse Comics, even though they were text novels with paintings every couple pages. They were a Dark Horse comic thing, and William C. Dietz, he was a pretty prolific science fiction writer, from what I understand, and he later wrote the he wrote another Clone Wars book, which then didn't come out. It was slated to come out. It had a cover and everything, and I think was finished, and it got canceled just for scheduling reasons. I think in 2003. So it's interesting what he would have tied into his own continuity if given the chance.
Yeah.
But them's the breaks with Star Wars publishing. But these were interesting graphic novels. I did later read them. I think in 2004, I finally got them, and I actually where I was seeing them about a year or two. I think 2 years after they came out, around 2001, they were bargain books, and I was like, "Ooh, 4.99 for this Star Wars hardback? Yes, sir." So that's where I snatched them up, and then I think I sadly later I had the soft cover versions too, and I think I sadly sold my soft cover versions, which I think are more rare now. But I still have my hardbacks, and I did revisit them 2 or 3 years ago again, and they're okay reads. The fiction for Jedi Knight really helps that story even more, and I recommend people read them. They are really good, and if you want the full Dark Forces Jedi Knight experience, they're really great. And I also cannot recommend more the audio dramas that came out
Yes.
for the same graphic novels. They were done in audio drama form. I know you had issues with the Kyle Katarn voice actor,
Well,
but
it's mainly just in my mind. It's Jason Court.
it's Jason
It
Court,
should
right?
always be Jason Court.
It's something to get used to. When you hear a certain one a lot, and then you hear another new one, you're like, "What the heck?" You know, it's always a weird thing with anything. Um, but those
Well,
audio
especially when you saw
dramas,
his face too. You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like he is definitely
Oh yes, yes.
Kyle.
Now the cool thing about these audio dramas is that I've heard them many times because they're one of my sleeping things I still put on every so often.
That's how exciting they are.
That's how exciting they are. But the cool thing is I believe they were produced by Tom Vagley, who also produced the Star Wars radio dramas, and he also did the Crimson Empire audio drama that came out shortly after the Dark Forces one. And you could, back in the day, you could get them on cassette, you could get them on CD, and there was even a trilogy box a collector's box, which I had, of 6 CDs of the whole Dark Forces audio trilogy.
I remember that. Yeah.
Really cool. And I didn't even know that existed. And one day I saw it on eBay and I was like, holy crap. And I snatched it up for a really great price. I think I paid $10 or something. And I still have that. So anyway, those are really, really good. They are high quality audio dramas. I would easily put them in the top tier with the Star Wars radio drama. They're that good. And yeah, so if you if you want to check those out, it's worth it.
Any of
Anyway,
the Star Wars audio dramas,
yeah, and
any of the radio drama dramatizations of any of the stories are
yeah, they're always really
almost
fun.
always good. Yeah.
And this is the second plug for this because I mentioned that in our Jedi Knight playthrough. We will do at some point an episode about audio and radio dramas because that's a very cool subject that I think is actually finally coming back because there's that Dooku 9 hour audio drama or whatever it is.
It's a
I think
hell
it
of a
was
way to come back.
6 hours or something. And then of course there's the new Dr. Afra one that came out last summer, I think. But anyway, going back to Jedi Knight, the story, the game itself. Um, I think this one was a huge improvement over Dark Forces. As much as I love Dark Forces, having Jedi Knight in 3D and playing it, it was so smooth. It was like the movement, the looking around with mouse look, and I don't know, it was just the gameplay was exponentially
The
increased.
walking, the sound
The,
effect of
the sound
walking.
effect of two left feet clanking on metal. Yeah. Um, but the environments too, like it was bold of them to have these really vast environments where you look up at the the government building in Baron's Head, where you look up and see the whole building when you know, and the sky and everything. That was always awe-inspiring when I
Yeah,
first saw
it
it
was really cool at the time. It
at the
doesn't hold
time.
up very well now, but I mean
No,
most everything from that era doesn't hold up very
yeah,
well.
and you could, you know, fight ATSTs, and there was, of course, the requisite stormtroopers and things like that. But yeah, the smoothness of the environments, like Narshada and the city at Baron's Head, I don't know, it just always stuck out to me as really a cool ambiance that just I felt like I was in the Star Wars universe like a lot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's helped, of course, by the Red Book audio. We now have the John Williams soundtrack, as had been used in X-Wing versus TIE Fighter earlier that year in '97.
Yeah, it was still a novel thing at the
It
time
was.
and exciting.
It was because even though we had the John Williams score in the Rebel Assault games, it was never a thing in open-ended non-rail games until I think XVT was the first, and that came out in spring '97, and I think Jedi Knight was the next game to use Red Book audio.
Mm-hmm.
And even though some of those track action cues we've heard too much now over the years, at the time, again, going from the novel experience of experiencing this in 1997, we were blown away. You know,
Yes.
because you know, okay, like we nostalgically enjoy MIDI now, but at the time we were kind of sick of it. We're like, we've had all these Super Nintendo and Genesis games. I'm ready to hear symphonic scores in my
Well,
games.
that's the thing. At the time, you know, if you had access to like a hardware MIDI machine, like a Roland or whatever, you were like stoked, right? Because it was closer to actual
Yeah.
instruments,
Yes,
to a real musical score or something that would be on CD.
that's true. And that's why
And
we
then when
can
we
go back now and the MIDI sounds great on those with the good playback machine.
yeah, now we're nostalgic for you know the shitty MIDI, but then also like the better MIDI if it was run through a hardware machine.
Yes.
And now at least for the games at the time, the red book is kind of,
it
overdone.
is what it is. It's just
It,
nah.
but it's funny. It's kind of like with classic gaming in general, especially with the consoles, where there's big arguments about whether or not you should play on an LCD or CRT. And at the time, you were trying to get the game, the 8-bit or 16-bit game, on the biggest TV and the highest quality that you could manage, right?
Yeah.
And now people are doing the reverse. They're trying to get it on the oldest, shittiest hardware that you
Right.
can. This
I'm gonna play
aging,
this. I'm gonna play this on my reel-to-reel player from
and
1978.
there's, yeah, well, that's another good example. Like records, you know,
Yeah,
vinyl.
I know.
People obsessing about getting stuff on
Or vinyl.
on vinyl, but and there's merit to both. I mean,
Yes.
CRTs, there's a good argument for that, for vinyl, for old MIDI and stuff. But it's just funny that now some of the old stuff people want to go back. They want it on the original stuff, even if it's not like, if it's the iMuse. We love the iMuse, but a
Yeah.
lot of people nowadays be like, "Oh, this sounds like crap. Why don't
Yeah.
you have the real Star Wars music?"
Right. Yeah, we know who thinks it sounds like crap. We're talking about millennials. I'm talking about you,
and
millennials
and Zoomers.
and Zoomers. But yeah, no, I like to have authentic experiences that do bring back the memories of how it was. And there's something for physical media, and that's the tactile feeling of holding a vinyl record in the gatefold sleeve and all that. Like my old Star Wars soundtracks that I still have. But yeah, that's why I like collecting games in their original boxes if I can, space willing.
Mm-hmm.
And I never owned Jedi Knight physically. I don't think I ever had it until getting it on GOG these last few years. Because there was actually a couple different boxes for it. There was the original one, which kind of had a close up of Kyle and Jarek like face to face with their lightsabers, and some.
Was that in the old style? I might have that box. Is it the old style where it
It's kind of
wasn't?
CG looking, and
Yeah,
there was.
but it would, like, the top would pull off the face,
Yes, I
right? It
believe
wasn't it
the
wasn't
top,
the it wasn't the very top, like the top edge opens up and then you pour the contents out. It's like the old style where um
or it was a gate cover,
not a
or.
gate cover, it was just like a, I don't know, you call it sandwich cover or something, like
Oh,
the
no,
whole
yeah,
top
yeah, yeah,
front
yeah. I know
would
what you're
pull
saying.
off.
It's like, yes, it slides off like literally a cardboard box cover,
Yes.
like a shoe box.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Actually,
Shoebox, there you go.
my Dark Forces game, because I have that in the box from eBay years ago. That's how that one is.
Yeah.
And but yeah, there was a couple variations on the cover, and that was another one.
Isn't it amazing people obsess about stupid cardboard crap like that?
People
Oh,
like
which
us.
which edition of the release do you have?
It's the same people that collect CDs and then zoom in on the matrix number on the disc, and say, "Oh, you got 95534, dude."
Yeah.
um,
Humans are weird.
yes, we are. But yeah, and then so okay, this was another game that I used to always see at Best Buy because that was the primary game purchasing location I had near me. So it was like, oh, cool, there's a new Star Wars game, and Jedi Knight is finally here after hearing about it for 9 months or a year and a half or whatever it was. And but then I didn't. I still, because my computer was so limited at the time and my funds were limited. I wasn't working when I was 17 or 16. I didn't see it until I played it at your house, and then played it a little bit before we left for Celebration. But then I had a longer playthrough. I think it was in 2000, like the next summer. I remember playing it at least up until Gork and Pick. I remember. Um, and that was a really fun playthrough. But I didn't beat it at the time though. I didn't beat it until 2017. That was
Oof,
when I
that's a
finally.
long lag time.
That was a long lag time. But not as long as your Dark Forces
No,
one.
not quite. Yeah, not quite. By a
Almost.
couple of years.
Yeah. And I'm still working on my Mysteries of the Sith game, parallel to yours. Plug for our Let's Play of Mysteries of the Sith, which will be seen after we post Dark Forces. So whoever's listening to this now, you're going to have to wait. But if you're listening to this in the future, in an archived episode, all of this will have been released by now, most likely. So, um, to wrap up our conversation about Jedi Knight, do you have any final thoughts on this? What I think most people consider to be a very much a LucasArts Star Wars classic. This is very still highly regarded.
I think it's it's got problems more so than Dark Forces.
Yeah,
Mainly
it does.
the floaty feel of the
Yeah.
controls and stuff, but other than that, especially for like the story and the cutscenes, if
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, totally
Yeah.
worth a playthrough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
It's
this is one that the nostalgia is very big because it was a big seller. A
mm-hmm.
lot of people had it, and there's if they were of that formative age like we were about 17 when this came out. So we were about 17, 18 when we played it, or 19 in my case. But we were at that formative age now where we look back on it and we're like, "Oh man, the memories of this game."
Yeah, it's like I said, it's totally worth the playthrough. It's a little bit harder depending on your system. It's a little bit harder to get running nowadays. Um, but if you can get past like sort of the dated graphics, because it is a little rough nowadays playing those early 3D games versus the the games that even just came out a few years before it with the 2D and the 2.5D sprites and stuff.
Right.
It's totally worth it.
Yeah. And I think that about wraps up our thoughts on Jedi Knight. And we're going to continue to, here's another reminder. We have playthroughs of Jedi Knight is almost entirely posted and should be finished by the end of next weekend. We have Dark Forces coming down the pipeline, that entire game. And then we are also doing Mysteries of the Sith, currently recording those. And we no doubt will have playthroughs of Jedi Outcast and probably Dark Forces 4, Jedi Academy, as I like to call it, not Jedi Knight 3 or whatever. But yeah, those are coming down the pipeline. And yeah, so that's our episode. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And remember to reach us on the Facebook page, on Instagram. We're at Star Wars Unfiltered at yahoo.com for any questions or comments. And until next time, I hope to do another good one. More episodes to come.
Hopefully.
I'm trailing off like I'm Biden here or something.
Yeah. Come on, man.
But yeah, hope everyone enjoyed the episode. We got more coming soon. Stay tuned. Until then, have a good night.
Good night.
What?